Hi there, my name is Lauren, and I'm a 33-year-old woman who recently went through a divorce. I had always thought of myself as someone deeply in love, living in what seemed like the perfect relationship. However, upon closer inspection, I realized that my marriage was anything but perfect, with several underlying issues that eventually led to its collapse. Let me take you back to where it all began. I first crossed paths with Mark through a friend we both had in common. From the get-go, there was an undeniable connection between us. Mark was not only handsome, but also had a magnetic personality that I found irresistible. We quickly started dating, and after 3 years of a seemingly smooth relationship, we decided to get married. Our relationship was marked by shared values and mutual accommodation, making everything appear idyllic on the surface. However, there was one major problem. Mark's parents, Julie and Ronald, who could only be described as antagonistic. The first time I met Julie and Ronald, their coldness was palpable. Upon joining them for dinner, I noticed there were only 2 plates on the table, excluding me. This oversight left me feeling both confused and deeply humiliated, especially since Mark did nothing to address the situation. When I pointed out the missing plate, Julie feigned ignorance, claiming she had forgotten I was there. The dinner that followed was even more challenging, with Julie and Ronald openly belittling me while Mark remained silent, a silence that, in retrospect, was a red flag for our future together. After enduring their hurtful comments, I was eager to leave. Conflicted emotions swirled within me. I was unsure whether to confront Mark for his lack of support or simply retreat into myself. The car ride home was uncomfortably quiet. Once we arrived, I waited for Mark to apologize, but he never did. Instead, he carried on as if the evening's events had never happened, prompting me to initiate a conversation. "We need to talk," I said, to which he replied he was going to bed, avoiding the issue. Frustrated, I called him out for his cowardice, leading to a heated exchange. Mark defended his silence, arguing he couldn't disrespect his parents in their own home. This incident highlighted a fundamental issue in our relationship: Mark's inability to stand up for me, especially in the face of his parents' hostility. It was a painful realization that, perhaps, he had never truly been on my side. I wasn't asking Mark to outright disrespect his parents. A simple request to them, asking for a bit of respect towards me, would have sufficed. I understand the delicate balance of family dynamics. My parents are different. Had I spoken out like that to them, they'd have seen it as disrespect. But Mark continued to defend his parents' actions, leaving me to question if he truly understood how much their behavior hurt me. "Can we just drop this? I'm going to bed," he concluded, leaving me alone with my thoughts, hurt and bewildered by his lack of empathy. I hoped maybe embarrassment was the root of Mark's reaction, but that night, I went to bed feeling empty, the incident hanging heavily between us. The next day, Mark acted as though nothing was amiss, which only added to my frustration. For 2 weeks, I gave him the silent treatment, waiting for an apology that never came. Despite my anger, I wasn't ready to let this incident be the end of us. Reluctantly, I started talking to him again, attempting to move past the incident with his parents. It was an unspoken agreement between us that we wouldn't visit Julie and Ronald again, a decision that held until our wedding day. At our wedding, I did my best to keep my distance from Mark's parents, dreading any interaction. However, avoidance was not a permanent solution. During the reception, they approached us with congratulations. "There's my handsome son and his lovely wife. Congratulations, son," they said. "Thank you," we both responded, somewhat mechanically. The conversation inevitably turned to our honeymoon plans. When we mentioned Seychelles, they suggested going abroad and even offered to fund it, despite our initial hesitation due to budget constraints. This gesture, unexpected as it was, left me pondering the complexity of family relationships and the unexpected ways they can evolve. However, there was a catch to their generous offer. "We'd like to join you and make it a group vacation," they suggested. The idea was met with enthusiasm from Mark, but it left me feeling cornered. A honeymoon, in my eyes, was supposed to be an intimate getaway for the newlyweds, not a family excursion. While Venice was a dream destination and definitely on my wish list, the prospect of sharing what was supposed to be our special time with others, especially given the past tensions, was far from appealing. Excusing myself, I headed to the restroom, a mix of disappointment and frustration brewing inside me. Had been looking forward to the solitude and intimacy of a honeymoon, regardless of the destination. Seychelles or Venice, the location mattered less than the opportunity to spend quality time alone with Mark. Yet there I was, sidelined in a decision that was ours to make. The remainder of the reception felt lengthy and strained for me, my spirits dampened by the turn of events. The ride home with Mark was silent, a reflection of the emotional exhaustion that had overtaken me. I couldn't muster the energy to discuss my feelings then, choosing instead to sleep on it. The next morning, the discontent was still there gnawing at me. So I decided to broach the subject with Mark. "I need to talk to you about something that's been bothering me," I began, expressing my disappointment in how the honeymoon plans were handled. Mark, however, saw the situation through a different lens, focusing on the allure of Venice and his parents' goodwill. "It's not about the destination," I tried to explain. "It's about us making decisions together, especially for something as personal as our honeymoon." Mark reassured me that there would be plenty of opportunities for us to be alone in the future, urging me to see the bright side of the offer. But my concern went deeper than just the immediate plans. "Given how your parents have treated me, do you think this is a good idea?" I questioned, seeking reassurance that we were making decisions as a team, prioritizing our relationship. Mark attempted to assuage my concerns, framing his parents' involvement as a gesture of kindness rather than an intrusion. "Stop overthinking and let's not ruin this opportunity," he urged, presenting it as a chance to explore a new place together. Yet, all I wanted was for us to have a voice in our own honeymoon plans. Was it too much to ask for a decision made by us, for us? "You can come or not, but try to focus on the positive," Mark suggested, hoping to shift my focus to the adventure ahead rather than the complications. The conversation left me pondering the balance between opportunity and autonomy, especially in the delicate dynamics of our newlywed life. It was really tough for me when Mark brushed off my feelings, making me wonder if he'd actually be fine with me skipping what was supposed to be our honeymoon, which now turned into a family vacation. Despite my reluctance, I chose to go along, hoping for the best. The trip was planned for a month post-wedding, and upon arrival at the airport, Julie and Ronald's unexpectedly warm welcome threw me off balance. Their kindness was a stark contrast to their usual demeanor, leading me to guard myself a bit, unsure of their sudden change of heart. For the initial week in Italy, their pleasant behavior continued, which slowly allowed me to let my guard down, thinking maybe things had changed for the better. However, as we delved into the second week, familiar patterns started to emerge. They began critiquing my attire, with Julie questioning my fashion sense. There were days they planned outings to upscale venues and explicitly left me out, claiming my outfit was too embarrassing, despite receiving compliments from locals on my style. As the vacation progressed, they found new ways to exclude me, often taking Mark out for most of the day without informing me, leaving me to spend significant time alone at the hotel. Then, the critiques shifted towards my weight and eating habits, with Julie making snide remarks whenever I opted for anything but a poke bowl, all while indulging in rich meals herself. Throughout these incidents, Mark remained silent, at times seemingly struggling to hold back laughter. Feeling isolated and ridiculed, I eagerly counted down the days until we could return home. The experience of being constantly bullied by his parents, with Mark's passive stance, was unbearable. I knew a serious conversation with Mark was inevitable, as my previous attempts to discuss how his family's actions affected me were met with indifference or avoidance. Determined to address this issue before it further damaged our relationship, I planned to confront Mark on our last day in Italy, hoping to finally make him understand the gravity of the situation. On the eve of our departure from Italy, I gathered our passports and tickets, ensuring everything was in order. Mark handed over his documents but seemed to have misplaced mine. Confused but overwhelmed by the stress of the trip, I didn't dwell on it too much until I went to Julie and Ronald's room to inquire about my ticket. Julie's casual revelation that they had forgotten to purchase my return ticket left me stunned. Her nonchalant whoops response did little to calm the brewing storm within me. I couldn't fathom how they could overlook something so crucial. Frustrated, I confronted Mark, seeking his support only to be met with a lukewarm apology, and a directive from Julie to address Mark respectfully and find my solution to the problem. The situation worsened when I learned that the flight they were on was fully booked. I pleaded with Mark to stay back or find an alternative solution together, but he was adamant about not missing the trip to Greece, citing his obligation to his parents who had funded our vacation from their retirement savings. As we left Julie and Ronald's room, Mark's avoidance and silence were a clear indication of his priorities. His unwillingness to confront his parents' blatant disregard for me, his wife, was disheartening. Watching Mark pack, his indifference palpable, I felt abandoned. Not once did he offer to help me secure a return ticket, nor did he apologize for the predicament. The thought of causing a scene crossed my mind, but humiliation had already taken its toll. When the time came for them to leave, Mark's departure was marked by a quiet exit, while Julie and Ronald bid me a cheerful farewell. Anger and disbelief consumed me. Left alone in a foreign country without support, I was forced to face the harsh reality of my situation. My frustration wasn't just with Mark's inaction, but also with the realization that his loyalty lay elsewhere, leaving me to navigate this unexpected challenge on my own. After enduring a month of dismissive behavior and snide remarks, not to mention Mark's silence throughout it all, I reached my breaking point. Seeking justice for the disregard and financial exploitation I'd faced seemed the only way forward. Mark, who had recently become financially stable, inherited a mortgage from his parents upon their retirement. However, due to his financial constraints, he was unable to maintain the payments, and the property neared foreclosure. That's when he named me, with my stable income and strong credit history, as the next owner. Realizing the depth of the situation, I reached out to my best friend, Nicole. Her husband, Albert, was well-versed in property law, making him the perfect ally in this scenario. Together, via a video call, we devised a plan, gathering evidence to demonstrate how I had been solely responsible for the mortgage payments since the property was transferred to my name. Despite initially accepting this responsibility under the belief that it would alleviate Mark's financial burden, it soon became evident that he was squandering his funds on frivolous items without contributing to the mortgage. 8 months passed without a single payment from him, a fact that only came to light after I addressed the issue, leading to a heated argument where he accused me of envy. Reflecting on the conversation with Albert, it dawned on me just how blind I had been to Mark's true character. The realization was shocking, prompting Nicole to question how I had failed to see the signs of Mark's exploitative nature before we married. My God, Lauren, how did you not realize how horrible Mark was before you even got married? She exclaimed in disbelief. I had no definitive answer, only the painful acknowledgement of my naivety and misplaced trust. I don't know. I guess I loved him and refused to see the wrong in his actions, I admitted, a hard truth to swallow. The conversation with Albert was a stark wake-up call, highlighting the extreme and almost unbelievable extent of Mark's manipulation and my inadvertent complicity in a situation that had spiraled far beyond my initial understanding. Now facing the reality of my situation, I was determined to take action. The conversation shifted towards practical steps. You've been handling the mortgage payments for over a year. It's straightforward to transfer the house into your name. Just contact the bank to remove Mark's name, Albert explained, offering to facilitate the process and even prepare an eviction notice to remove Mark and his parents from the property. Grateful for their support, I felt a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. Albert has his connections. He'll sort everything out before you're back, Nicole assured me, reinforcing the importance of being vigilant in the future to avoid being exploited again. With a promise to be more cautious, I contemplated the immediate future. Knowing Mark and his parents had a long layover in Greece provided an unexpected advantage, allowing me time to act before they returned. Seizing the opportunity, I managed to book a flight home within hours, embarking on a journey filled with mixed emotions. Throughout the flight, I was overwhelmed by sadness, reflecting on the love I had for Mark and how it was met with betrayal. The thought of serving them with an eviction notice upon their return was a small consolation, though it brought no joy, only the satisfaction of standing up for myself. I pondered their next steps, realizing they would likely have to cram into the small apartment Mark and I shared, especially with our lease ending soon and their limited financial resources for immediate alternatives. This ordeal had not only marked the end of my relationship with Mark, but also a significant turning point in my life. It was a harsh lesson in love, trust, and the importance of recognizing one's worth. Despite the pain, this decisive action represented a step towards reclaiming my independence and dignity. Reflecting on how Mark and his parents had callously left me stranded in a foreign country without a moment's concern for my well-being, I found the resolve to proceed with my plan without a trace of guilt. Their thoughtless actions justified my decision entirely. Upon my return, I discovered they were still 3 hours away from their departure, fueling my determination to see my plan through. My first stop after landing was their house, where I used the spare key they hid under the mat to enter. Once inside, my immediate task was to secure a top-notch divorce attorney. With my laptop in hand, I quickly initiated the divorce proceedings and reached out to Nicole for support. She and Albert were quick to respond, coming over to help me finalize the necessary paperwork to remove Mark's name from the property title and prepare the eviction notice. Their visit was a stark reminder of everything I had been trying to hold back since landing. The emotional support they offered was invaluable, helping me navigate through a whirlwind of emotions in a house laden with memories of Mark. After they left, I managed a few hours of sleep, despite the overwhelming circumstances. Awakening, refreshed yet apprehensive, I dressed and collected the divorce papers from my attorney. The reality of confronting Mark and his parents upon their return loomed over me. I steeled myself for the encounter, determined to maintain my composure. Their arrival was marked by confusion and disbelief. "What are you doing here? When did you get back?" Mark asked, feigning concern. But I was beyond entertaining any pretense of reconciliation. "Save it. You didn't try anything. To answer your question, I returned yesterday. And I'm here for a very specific reason," I responded, my voice steady. Their fatigue from travel did nothing to soften my resolve. "I want you guys out of my house," I declared, asserting my ownership. The disbelief and refusal to leave were met with unwavering firmness on my part. "This is now my house, since I've been the one making the mortgage payments for the past year," I informed them, holding the legal and moral high ground. The confrontation was the culmination of a series of betrayals, a moment of reclaiming my dignity and autonomy. Despite the challenges, the support of my friends and the justice of my actions provided a foundation for moving forward. When I confronted Mark and his parents with the reality of the situation, their shock was palpable. They had been under the impression that Mark was managing the mortgage payments. "What, Mark? What is she saying? We thought you were taking care of it," they exclaimed, bewildered by the revelation. I clarified he was supposed to, but instead, he transferred the responsibility to me. "I've been the one making all the payments because he didn't contribute a single penny. Consequently, I've legally removed him from the ownership, and now the house belongs to me." Their attempts to negotiate their stay were futile. My patience had worn thin after enduring their constant mistreatment. I stood firm, warning them that any refusal to leave would result in police intervention. As they prepared to leave, I handed Mark the divorce papers, expressing my refusal to remain married to someone who exploited me financially and failed to support me emotionally. Mark's apologies and pleas were too little, too late. The depth of my hurt and betrayal severed any remaining ties I felt towards him. Watching them exit my life was a bittersweet victory. While the scars of their actions lingered, regaining control of my life and standing up to their abuse marked a significant personal triumph. In the ensuing months, Mark's attempt to challenge the divorce proved futile against the financial and emotional costs involved, leading him to relent. Last I heard, Mark and his parents had to rely on relatives for shelter until they could find an affordable living situation. Julie and Ronald even returned to work to sustain themselves. Their struggles, while unfortunate, were a direct consequence of their actions, a hard lesson in respecting and valuing those who extend their support. Since taking a stand and removing them from my life, I've embraced a newfound sense of happiness and empowerment. Memories of the ordeal occasionally resurface, but the satisfaction of having asserted my dignity always provides comfort. This chapter of my life, though painful, underscored the importance of self-respect and the strength in decisively ending toxic relationships.